So last Saturday, I watched Peter Pan and Wendy, and immediately I got on my phone, recorded a quick YouTube short telling you my basic thoughts on the movie. Now I'm going to go into a little more depth. This is going to be a spoiler-free review and just tell you my thoughts on what do I think of Peter Pan and Wendy. So let's start out with just talking about the bad stuff for Peter Pan and Wendy. I'm gonna have to start with the opening. I didn't hate the opening, but I think the problem with the opening is mainly just how similar it is to the original. It's not a terrible opening, but I think I'm putting it on my bad list mainly because it wasn't doing everything it did different in the opening. I didn't really like. It had some more woke stuff in it. I think there was like some good points in it, and the fact of the matter is, to tell you the truth, I actually kind of liked the opening, so I could have put it on my good list, but I don't know, I'd put it on the list of stuff I didn't like because, there wasn't anything different, there wasn't anything good about it. It kind of got me hyped for the movie, but for the most part, I don't think it did anything good that I would say, hey, this is a good thing about this movie, this is a good change they made in the movie. Because every single change they made in this opening was kind of just like, okay. The next one is just still with the opening, is that of Peter Pan. Peter Pan, the first scene, and I talked about this in my trailer for it. The scene you see of Peter Pan talking and all in the trailers, where he's like, she's not a bug, she's a fairy, The way that line is delivered, and the opening scene with Peter, I was just like, oh, this movie's gonna be terrible. They can't even get Peter Pan right. He was too bland. He was a terrible child actor. It was, I don't know. I hate him in the opening of the movie. He was just kind of bland and boring, and he kind of just felt like a kid trying to act like Peter Pan, but not being able to, Peter Pan is supposed to be a troublemaker. And I will admit this is something they never do well in this movie. Even though I like this Peter Pan in the movie later on, they never do a good job making him the Peter Pan. He's not the Peter Pan from the original. He's a fun-loving kid, but he's never that troublemaker. He's never, Peter Pan. He's a different version of Peter Pan, you could say. So I don't mind that version, but you have to remember, and I think there's a big thing we're going to have to talk about, I'm going to talk about later on in the video, is the importance of remembering that this is a different movie. This is a different story. This is a different, as I talked about in my YouTube short, the big word I would use to describe what I like about this one is that it's different. And yeah, that's something you have to remember, is this in this remake, it's different than the original. And I think some of the changes they make are good. Not saying that the original wasn't good, but it's just that I think some of the changes they made it so I can enjoy the original and this one, and I would honestly watch it again. So yeah, Peter Pan in the opening is kind of bland, and but the biggest problem I have with this movie is just Tinkerbell. I talked about it in my YouTube short about this, but Tinkerbell looks terrible. If you thought that she looked weird in the trailer, you're going to be in for a treat because she looks terrible throughout the whole movie. Every single time you see a close-up, right? If you see a really small distance image of her, you're not gonna have a problem. But the moment you see a close-up of Tinkerbell, as I explained in my trailer reactions, there's something weirdly animated about her face and all. The actress they got, I don't know why, but it's just like she puts on this really weird smile that's just, and it's not because of this color of her skin. I think they could have got another black actress and it would have worked perfectly. She's a lifeless version of Tinkerbell. They take out all the fun stuff about Tinkerbell. One of the biggest things they take out about Tinkerbell that's, at the beginning I'm like, oh, this is annoying that they're taking this out. But there's somewhat of a reason why they took it out, was that of the button heads of Tinkerbell and Wendy, and how Tinkerbell just hates Wendy and keeps trying to get her killed and all because she hates Wendy. They take that out, which is probably for good reason, because if you remember why she's jealous of Wendy is because Wendy is kind of hidden on Peter Pan, and Tinkerbell doesn't like this because she apparently has a crush on Peter Pan herself. Which, when you come to think of it, that's kind of weird. That's very strange. Actually, nowadays, you cannot get away with having this fairy that's a full-grown adult crushing over this little kid. It's weird, very strange. But in the original, it was kind of like, I mean, they gave Tinkerbell her sassy little Tinkerbell self. I will admit that, yes, that is a good change. They did to make it so she doesn't have a crush on Peter Pan or anything weird, stuff like that. But I will have to say, I did kind of miss the whole hatred between her and Wendy, where he was just always trying to get Wendy killed until basically the end of the story. Overall, I think that's a change they made that was I had my problems with, and I also didn't, because I understand why they made the change. But it's also like, oh, it took out the fun, rivalry between those two that was enjoyable in the original. But yeah, no, mainly the problem with Tinkerbell is that, honestly, I'm so glad that Tinkerbell is such a little role in the movie. She's a part of the movie, but this every single time you see a close-up of Tinkerbell, it doesn't look right. And again, I don't think it's the color of the skin that's the problem. I think it's mainly just that the actress they got just doesn't look good as Tinkerbell. She was trying to overly ham it up for the screen, maybe. I don't know what it is. I would have to literally dissect the character of Tinkerbell in this movie more to understand why, but she just doesn't look like someone you could, she doesn't look like Tinkerbell. But it's not because, I don't think it's because it's the color of her skin. I think it's literally just because the actress they got, it's like the CGI done on her looks terrible. She looks like, the best example I can think of is what She-Hulk looks like in the She-Hulk series. The CGI on her looks terrible. It's kind of like that. And yeah, it looks like she's a CGI person, but I know she's, they shrunk her down to make her small, but I know she's not actually just a CGI face and all, but she looks like she's just CGI face. I don't know what they did to make it look like that, but the actress doesn't look too much different, so I don't know what they did to make it so it looks so CGI-like, but she looks like a very badly done CGI character. So it's every single time she's on screen, and you have a close-up of her, pulls me away from the scene, from the movie, because it's just like, it doesn't look good. She doesn't look good. One bit. I don't know how to just say it. You guys would have to watch it to see what I'm talking about, but it really, I think this is the biggest complaint I have, because it really drew every single scene you saw a close-up of her face. I was reminded when I was watching, and I wasn't watching just a fun little movie, I was watching a Disney cash grab, and I hated that because I was enjoying myself for a long time there. And the last thing I'm going to talk about that's bad is a pretty obvious one. There is a lot of woke stuff in this, and sometimes it comes off as a little weird. I mean, wow, honestly, in my opinion, I don't hate what they did with making Wendy a little bit more of a central character. I like that. I liked how they made her a little bit more badass, and I mean, she's I liked it. I thought it was good. But there are some moments where it's just the big example that's coming in my mind is when she jumps off the plank. It happens in the original too. And she jumps off the plank. And, normally Peter Pan is the one who saves her. In this version, Peter Pan doesn't save her. Tinkerbell manages to break free and sprinkle her with pixie dust, and boom, this is not really a spoiler because of the reason that we all know that they're not going to kill off Wendy, and that we all know what happens in that scene. It's just a little bit different instead of Peter Pan saving her. But anyway, so she rises back up, and then Hook's you have the boy's magic, and then she's like, I have no boy's magic. This magic belongs to no boy. It's just at that moment it pulled me out of the movie again. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a woke Hollywood movie. But it was one of those moments where then immediately went back to having a fun little pirate adventure and all, and I moved on from it. But it was one of those moments where it's just oh yeah, that's kind of too preachy and awkward. It's not Peter Pan's magic. It's practically because of pixie dust Exactly, it's because of fairies, and in this case, Tinkerbell. It's because of fairy dust that they can fly and their own happy thoughts. So it's really really good in that way. There's other moments where it's just like, I think they promoted this movie saying that, oh, look how we're gonna make a feminine, strong Wendy, and for the most part, yeah, they did, and they kind of made it so, I think they did really, more I think of it, they did really push Peter Pan to the side so Wendy can have more time. Like, they arrive in Neverland, and then you don't see Peter Pan for like 20 more minutes until Peter Pan shows up again. But it's still that Peter Pan is actually in that moment. Peter Pan is the one fighting Hook, and Peter Pan is it's always Peter Pan and Hook fighting. I will have to get to more of that in my spoiler review, but there's other moments, like some moments in the opening, and like basically most of the woke stuff in the movie happens in the trailers. So stuff I talked and mentioned in the trailers is probably also the problems with this movie. It's just, I don't know. I think there's so much good in this movie that it really like takes away from this woke stuff. So I don't know. I kind of didn't care as much about the woke stuff because I could have an enjoyable movie. But honestly, there's a lot of good, so I really want to talk about the good because that's what that's really what I want to talk about. Because there's a lot of good in this movie. So starting out with the good, I'm gonna start out with the opening intro. I talked about this in my trailer for it, and it's even more so in this. The opening for this, I just love what they're doing. I love it how they're at least saying, hey, we are going to, even if no one else likes our remakes, we are going to stand strong and say we are going to continue making these remakes, and we're going to make a special intro for these remakes. Hopefully, I'm praying that they keep that intro, the special little, like, I'm not going to go through and explain the whole intro to you guys, but the special little intro at the beginning of this movie, I hope they keep that all, like, little clips from each of the remakes. So it's just like, hey, this is our remake Disney brand. Like, awesome. I love that, how they're at least being brave enough to say, hey, we're gonna commit to this and actually, like, you know what I mean? I like that. I liked how they took the time, and I like that intro. It looks fun, it looks cool. And I'm proud that they're at least, even if we don't like these movies, least willing to not try to hide that they ever made them, but actually be proud of them. I think that's a good idea because, yes, eventually maybe people might warm up to some of them. Hopefully not. There's so much of them that are just terrible, but I don't know. I liked the intro, and I thought it was good. Next one is, as I talked about before in the bad stuff, I said that Peter Pan in the opening is bland. But you heard me say that I actually liked him in the rest of it. And that's true. I really thought he was a different Peter Pan. But especially in scenes like at Skull Cove and all, he was a lot of fun. He was a very fun version of Peter Pan. I really liked him when he was like, I mean, being Peter Pan. I don't know if Peter Pan was my favorite character from it, but I think when they did moments of Peter Pan, they gave him a lot more like heart to heart moments with characters than in the original. And I really liked this version of Peter Pan. I thought he was really different, but I did like him, and I thought he was a lot of fun. And he was kind of funny, and I don't know. I liked him. He wasn't perfect, but I liked him. Then comes my favorite character. My favorite character from this was probably Hook. At the opening scene when I first met Hook, I didn't like it. I didn't like this version of Hook. I'm like, oh, he's just me another pirate captain. There was nothing special about him. And then you got later on in the movie, especially, again, just like with Peter Pan, it was really the moment that I first started being like, oh, I really like this version of Hook, was at Skull Cove and all, because you really saw the over-the-top performance Jude Law was given to this, and it was so much fun to watch. It was just hilarious, and I loved it. It was an awesome performance, and again, I won't talk about the spoilers, but there's some great stuff they do with this performance that I will have to get into spoilers because the spoilers stuff that happens in the story. I really liked the character of Captain Hook. I thought he was a lot of fun to watch. And I think the backstory they gave him While some people might not like it, I really like the backstory they gave him. It gave a really like, you mean, in the original, the whole point of him was that he was the enemy of Peter Pan for his little adventures, and that he was also supposed to represent, you mean, what adults are like and how the fight against kids and adults and all this, like, I mean, how they didn't want to grow up. But they go more in depth with this. I think they actually do it better than the original, with the whole overall onion story of growing up. And I think that's one of the biggest examples I can say of something they did better, probably, is, honestly, I would have to rewatch the original, but after what I remembered of the original, I think this one does a better job with the storyline of growing up. And I think that the characters get even more to that point where they're like, yeah, maybe we should grow up. Like, especially Wendy, where she's just like, I'm ready to grow up now. I feel like she really got to a point where you felt that. Which leads me into, of course, the story. As I just mentioned, the story really is the story is really, really good for the most part. There's definitely problems with the stories, but I think the changes they made, for the most part, I won't go into spoilers about what happens in these changes, but the changes are really, really good. In my mind, I think they took out some bad stuff. Anyways, but the story, for the most part, I mean, it's different. The opening is almost the same, and then once they get to Neverland, it's like the story is completely like there's hints of that if you start writing down the basics of what happened in the Peter Pan and Wendy, in the Peter Pan story from the 50s and all, you're going to find yourself checking off certain marks. I mean, Peter Pan goes and gets Wendy and her brothers from London. They go to Neverland. There's some people need to be saved from the Skull Cove. Finds Peter Pan's hideout and captures all the people besides Peter Pan. And then Wendy has to walk the plank. And then there's an ending scene where Peter Pan has to fight Hook, and Hook falls off into the water. Those are the basic stories all there, but they add a lot of things to make it different, and I like that. Well, I think the story is really good. The visuals of this movie, the opening, I'm like, oh, it looks kind of grainy and looks kind of like, it kind of looks like another Disney remake type thing, and I didn't really like it, but I was also like, there was a part of me that was like saying, hey, maybe they're doing like the graininess of the opening to represent the dullness of London and their life having to grow up and all. And yes, I was right. The moment they got to Neverland, it turned brighter, it turned more like happy and more, it was Neverland. Everyone loves Neverland. And I think they could have made it brighter in a way, but I think what they did with it looked like, visually, it looked nice. I liked it. As I mentioned in my YouTube short, I don't know why Disney. Actually, I do know why Disney didn't, because they were afraid this was going to do terrible. But I don't know why they didn't give this the big screen treatment, because in my mind, I would say to you guys, I would strongly recommend you guys check this out in theaters, because it was visually nice, and I think it's an important thing, especially in this world, to go to movies and say, hey, Disney, this was a good remake. Good job with this remake. We approve of this one, but do not go to say, hey, we're going to go watch Maleficent in theaters, because Maleficent was terrible. It was terrible, and I will not talk about that in this video, but it was terrible, right? Go and show Disney, I want to see more of this. Disney, I do not want to see more of this. Yeah, visually, it looks nice, and if it was in theaters, I would strongly recommend it, because it's not in theaters. If you have a big screen TV, watch on the big screen TV, because I thought this is one of the very few movies that I actually took the time to pull out my TV that I have. I actually made sure to plug in my laptop to my TV so I could watch it on my TV, because I thought it was worth watching on a little bigger of a screen. Eventually, once the channel gets bigger, I might actually invest in getting a bigger TV, so I can really give you guys my opinions on the visuals of this. But the channel has to get a lot bigger for that. That's later on plans. But anyways, the point is, so visually this is nice, and I would strongly recommend that you guys check it out on the biggest screen you can. Next, I would say, is the music. The music in this, the opening song, I'm like, the singing is singer is not the best, but okay, yeah, it's okay. I guess it's not perfect, but it was fun. I'm like, I guess the song was good. I'm like, hopefully there's not a lot of this song music in it that takes away from this. And then it comes to the point where like Hook's just like to Skull Cove, and this amazing pirate song started that it was just so much fun to listen to. And for the last couple of days, I keep going back to and listening to these 2 songs from that series that are pirate songs, because they were just so much fun to watch. And I was like, during that moment, I was just like, this is amazing. This is an awesome movie. I love this. It was crazy. I was like, I can't believe I'm getting into actually enjoying a Disney remake, but the music in this was just so much fun. And then that lullaby comes back later in the story, and it has deeper meaning to it, and it's like sung better, and it's just like, oh my goodness, this is incredible. I like that. I really like the music in this. The music is just, the soundtrack in this is awesome. The music in this is just so much fun to watch, and it made it such a fun movie, and they added an extra layer of fun to this movie. So guys, to wrap it all up, I just want to overall give me my thoughts on whether you should watch this or not. My thoughts is this is a really fun adventure for boys and girls. I think that's one of the biggest things is they made when they changed, I get it that in the original they have it so it's only the Lost Boys, and they made it so that it's because of the reason that it says in the book that is because baby girls are too clever to get lost in their carriage, while boys are stupid, and that's why they end up in Neverland, because they can actually get lost. I think it's supposed to be saying like, yeah, girls are a lot more clever than boys are. They're a lot, as babies, they're a lot smarter, all that kind of stuff, and it's kind of funny. So I do understand where a lot of people are coming from. Where like, why did they add in lost girls to it too? Because the fact of the matter is, it was supposed to be a compliment to girls when they said, hey, it was only be boys. But overall, I don't think it's a problem that they added girls in. I mean, having girls in the series was not a bad idea, and overall I thought it was clever. I thought it was nice. I liked it. Yeah, because of that, I feel like it really nowadays, yeah, the girls would like to be represented too in the Lost Boys, maybe. And I thought by adding the girls in, I think they added the layer of, and they had it so, another thing I think that was really good about this is they added in mixed races. They had it so you had some Asian people, you had some black kids, you had some, you had all these different types of races in it, and I think that would add a layer of yeah, it's not just white kids that are in the Lost Boys. You can have people from different races in the Lost Boys. This is a place where all lost kids can go to. I really like that. I think a lot of people are going to complain about, all this woke stuff they did in the Lost Boys, but I don't think it's as much woke, and yes, I do understand that but they probably did it for woke reasons. I honestly thought that it was good, and that I didn't care that they might have done it for woke reasons, because, I don't know, I liked it. I thought that adding this layer of, yes, the girls can be represented, that Asian people can be represented, that black people can be represented in the Lost Boys. It made a layer of, yeah, you can all have people, and that does not mean that black kids or Asian kids or white kids can only look to their race. They can look to other races. Some of my favorite actors are black, because the fact of the matter is, I don't only look to white people, and black people should not only look to black people. The fact of the matter is, you should look to everyone as an example. But the fact of the matter is, it sometimes is important to have someone that you can look up to. It has to be someone that looks kind of like you. I think one of the biggest things is, while some of it is overly planned promotion and all, there's all this thing. There was this thing going around when the first trailer for The Little Mermaid came out, where they were all these black kids saying, look, and all these black kids reacting and being like, oh my goodness, she looks like me. And it was just okay, that's cool. But I do know that a lot of those TikTok trend stuff or before the camera gets started, the parents like, okay, so you're gonna have to react like this to that, so that we can get views to this. So there is a lot of that that's not actually genuinely what they're actually saying at the moment. But there are moments where, like, yeah, that's generally true, that it's nice to have people that look like you to, like, I mean, honestly, a lot of people might hate me for this when I say this, but honestly, I thought it was a good idea when they changed the race of The Little Mermaid. I have never watched The Little Mermaid. I don't care to watch The Little Mermaid. Maybe if I eventually are going through and reviewing all the Disney princess movies, I might review that movie and tell you my thoughts on the original Little Mermaid. But I honestly, when I saw that, I'm like, I really don't care. Good for them that they're going to make her black. I mean, I think one of the greatest things that Disney ever did was make, while I don't like the movie, I think one of the greatest things they did there was that they had their first black Disney princess. And I think that was a great thing they did there. And I think it's a great idea to change up, like, I mean, when a remake, again, as I said I would talk about, a remake is not supposed to be just it's not supposed to be, again, The Lion King from 2019, where it's just the shot-for-shot remake of the original. That, I don't think it's a good idea, because, like, the point of it, and I will talk about this later in my video, when I put out my video on what I think they can do different and make better with the Harry Potter remake. But the point is, a remake is not supposed to be just cash grab off of the original. It's like, yeah, as I talked about in the trailer, when I was acting in the trailers for Peter Pan and Wendy, I was like, this is a good movie. I think they could make a great remake out of, because there's a lot of, like, there was a lot of racist stuff in the original, a lot of sexist stuff in the original, and they could change that and make it better. Because the fact of the matter is, the story of Peter Pan was good. It just had a lot of stuff where it was just like, some people were like wondering whether we should, boycott the original Peter Pan because what problems it has in it. Honestly, I don't think they should do that. But the point is, there was problems in it that, on Disney Plus, they have to put a disclaimer at the beginning saying this has some racist stuff in it. Because there are racist stuff in because there are some racist stuff in the original Peter Pan. But the fact is, when it comes to remakes, is you are supposed to, okay, so Peter Pan is a good story. People like Peter Pan, but it had this racist stuff in it. What if we remake Peter Pan and change up the story a little bit, make some changes to it to make it better, and then remove all the racist stuff? Now, you have a updated version of Peter Pan that's up to the standards of this time's audience. People who, I'm not saying people who are just woke, but people who are like, yeah, maybe we don't want to hear a really racist song against Native Americans. They can watch this version where there's not this racist song against Native Americans. That's good. That's a good thing. Hey, for those kids who wanted to see a Disney princess they liked as a black woman, there you go. You have the Little Mermaid. You get the point. There's some characters that won't work as black, and I don't think you should change every character into a black character, because then wouldn't work. But updating and stuff is sometimes a good thing. Taking out the racist, the sexist stuff in a series, in a movie, and updating it can be a really good thing. In the Harry Potter series, some changes, I'm not going to put out a whole video, but some changes you can make is you could add in some parts in the books that wasn't added. You can make, there's a lot of people saying, hey, what if you make Hermione black? That's a great idea. Now, one of the main characters can be, the kids can be represented by this main character. That's awesome. And I think it's a problem that we're running into, that we are overly saying that it has to be a bad thing if they make any changes to the original. The point of the original is to, when you update it, you're updating it to make it so it's no longer have these problems. Fixing something. If they remade Star Wars, they could fix some of the problems that's in Star Wars. If they remade The Lord of the Rings, they could fix some problems in The Lord of the Rings. Again, I would never want them to remake The Lord of the Rings because I think The Lord of the Rings is okay as it is. But you get the point. You can make, if you're going to remake something, at least change it enough. And this is what I was saying before, and I said in my YouTube short on this. The thing that makes me like this is that it's different. It makes changes, and I think some of the changes are they better than the original? Maybe not. And then some changes where I'm like, it makes it so it's a completely different story. It has the same elements to it, but there's so much different that I can watch the original and watch this and not feel like I'm just watching the same movie. You're watching two different movies with two different stories to it, and I like that. I like when they make changes to stuff. They make a remake of a really old movie, they can change some stuff up, and I will talk about, because I'm going to be putting out a video this week about my top 20 favorite musicals. I was going to make it to a top 10, but when I was writing up the script for it, I realized that I could not figure out which ones to cut out of the 20 I had on that list, so I kept it to just 20, and it might be very long, probably 2 videos in that case. But the point is that there's movies on that list that is just like, I would love to see a remake for this, because I mean, it could update it to more modern audiences. Some people won't be able to watch that stuff because people will want to boycott it because it has some problems with it. And sometimes it's because they're a little bit too offended by stuff that should not be that offended by. And sometimes it's because, honestly, yeah, was problems. And as I've mentioned, and I had a wonderful comment mentioned how they called me out on what I was saying with, I wish we just went back to old Hollywood where everything was better. And a comment mentioned like, hey, Hollywood back then was terrible. You're just thinking of all the good movies back then. And I'm like, you're right. The fact of the matter is there was a lot of problems in old Hollywood back then where there was a lot of people who made movies for just money, and there was a lot of like racist, sexist things going on in those movies back then. And if they made Wonderful Life, and nowadays they could change some stuff up to make it so it's not as sexist or racist and stuff like that. There's some movies that, while I don't want to see a remake for It's a Wonderful Life, I would not say that it's a problem if they made a remake for It's a Wonderful Life that's actually good. I wouldn't have a problem with that because, yeah, they could fix some of the changes. So guys, yeah, overall, I think this movie is a really good movie for the movie Peter Pan and Wendy is a good movie for boys and girls that they can both like. It's a very fun adventure for kids. It's, if you're an adult and you're too offended by the idea that anyone can make a remake to Peter Pan or any Disney original, yes, you're going to probably not like this. If you can't get past the idea that, yeah, this is probably just a cash grab, they're making it because they can make money off of it, then yeah, you're probably not going to like this movie. But if you're able to say, hey, these actors, these directors, these writers actually had fun making this movie, then maybe you can actually have a fun adventure with this. Because honestly, I liked it. And I was very surprised that I liked it because it's a Disney remake. And honestly, there's only a couple Disney remakes that I actually thought were passable. And I will probably make a video talking about the Disney remakes and talking about ranking them on what's the best. But the fact of the matter is, I actually enjoyed this. And I strongly recommend, if you guys want to, watch this too. Enjoy it too. Because honestly, I thought it was a lot of fun. And is it perfect? No. But it was good. And I think that we need to get over this idea that remakes have to be the original, and that if it's not the original, it's terrible. And that, yeah, there was a problem with woke Hollywood, but woke Hollywood, if they make a good movie, I can still enjoy the movie, putting aside that there are woke elements in it. And I thought this had a lot of woke elements in it, but I enjoyed the parts that weren't woke and weren't spoon-feeding me a bunch of woke stuff. I enjoyed that. And I thought that it was really good. So next time you're wondering whether, when you're on Disney Plus and you're wondering what to put your kids on, honestly, I think this is a good movie to put your kids in. Get on your TV, turn on this, and allow your kids to watch it. there's nothing in this that would be overly a problem for kids if, as long as you don't have a problem with empowering your girls to not just be under a man's shadow, then you're not going to run into a problem in my mind. Because the fact of the matter is, honestly, I think that's a good thing to, like, when I have kids, I'm going to train my girls to not live under the shadow of a man. And I think that's one we run into, is that we have people who are completely woke, big feminists who thinks that all men are terrible, and then you have people who are, because of the people over here, are like pushing all the way over there and saying that all women are terrible, all women are awful, that women should be treated like objects and stuff like that. And I think that's terrible. We need to meet in the middle ground and say, hey, men and women can both learn from each other. There are not all bad men and they're not all bad women. Women and men can work in unity together, and I think that's an important thing. So guys, the fact of the matter is, there's nothing in this movie that I would say is a problem. The woke stuff gets annoying sometimes, but besides that, there's nothing in this that would say, don't watch this. I would strongly recommend, if you want to put your kids in a movie, put your kids in with this movie, because it's really, really, really good. Thank you guys for watching. Tell me your thoughts if you haven't seen this. Did you guys like it? Did you think could you not get past the stuff that was woke in this? I don't know, I did. But yeah, tell me your thoughts. Tell me if any movies you want me to watch and review. If you guys haven't yet, please subscribe so we can reach, over this weekend, because I'm Christian and I try to not do any work on Sundays, I try my best never to get on my YouTube channel on Sunday. And so when I posted my YouTube short and I posted a couple of videos on Saturday, I did not see how they did. And then on Monday morning I got on. I was very happy to see that we had managed on Sunday, or maybe even Saturday evening, just over that time that I wasn't looking at my YouTube channel, we had managed to gain 6 more subscribers. And thank you guys for that. And again, we're almost to 100. Literally, we just have to get about like 20 more subscribers and we can reach 100. Then we can do, that video that I had planned for that. And then after that, we can reach the 1,000 and then the 10,000 and the 100,000. And we can just continue going. And I can't wait. I'm glad that we were able to reach people. And hopefully we can use this as a little bit more of a middle ground, saying, hey, you don't have to be far woke or far against anything that the woke media is trying to do, because some stuff are good. Feminism is somewhat, and some of my sisters are going to hate me for saying this, are somewhat a good thing. We should empower all women. In just the same way, we should empower our men. Thank you guys for watching. This has been the Movie Night Reviewer. Peter Wendy, signing off.